people? Welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I am your host as always, Jeff Stormer, and this week I am joined by friend of the show, podcaster, game designer, wonderful human being Alex Flanigan for a very special game of an Angelical year in the Angelical life of an Angelical cat. The Angelical life is a very special game. It combines two things that are close to my heart and close to Alex's heart. Honestly, once I read the Angelical life, Alex was the only person I could really envision playing it with because it combines the world of David Lynch-esque horror stories, such as Twin Peaks, with cats. Broadway musical, 2019 masterpiece film by Tom Hooper, Cats. It is about cats in an otherworldly, hellish afterlife, an ever-expanding city outside of time, who really can only interact through dance battle. This game absolutely owns. I loved playing it. I'm so excited. I think you're going to love listening to it. It's good. It's a good game. Please go to the show notes to learn more about the Angelical life. It's a real good game. You know Alex as a podcaster. You know her as the host of the Cryptid Keeper podcast, where she and Addison Peacock go over a different cryptid and its history every single episode. You know her as from Aurora Borealis, a Monster of the Week actual play set in the town of Revenant, Alaska. You know her from games like Coffee Detective. Alex is great. Treasure. One of my favorite people to podcast with. Made this episode particularly special. And with that, let's just go ahead and get into it because I think it's really exciting and I want you to hear this really masterpiece. And so, without any further ado, let's throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future me. This week, I am so delighted to be joined for what is going to be a particularly special episode by a particularly special guest, my good friend, Alex Flanigan. Alex, thank you so much for coming back on Party of One.
Thanks for having me again, Jeff. I'm really, really excited to be here. This is, no joke, the best part of my day. Probably the best part of my week.
This is going to be the best part of my day by probably a pretty wide margin, only because I think that we are going to truly create something special and magical here that I think is really, I believe, as you put it, the culmination of both of our journeys as artists.
Yeah, I'm willing to stand by that. I feel comfortable making that promise, not even claim, that guarantee about this journey that we're going to go on together.
Before we get into that, though, why don't you take a moment and let the lovely listeners at home know about all the cool stuff you've got going on that you want them to know about?
Yeah, well, like many people, I don't know when this episode will air, but I'm assuming things won't have changed that much. I don't have all that much going on right now, but
that's fair.
Sort of digitally speaking and creatively, I'm Alex Flanigan. I am half of the Cryptid Keeper podcast, which you may have heard of. It airs on the Lunar Light Studio Network, and it is a podcast where Addison Peacock and myself discuss a new cryptid or mythological creature or folkloric being every week, which is always a lot of fun. And then I am also the game master for Aurora Borealis, which is a Monster of the Week actual play podcast on the One Shot Network. You can find me on Twitter at Coffee Detective, which is COFF33 Detective, after the game of the same name, which I designed.
Perfect. I was going to mention that game if you didn't, because it's your Twitter handle, but I see you've built that into your pitch. Well done.
That's part of my brand now, yeah, so I just decided to lean fully into it.
If you're not leaning fully into it, what are you doing?
There's literally no point otherwise.
Speaking of leaning fully into it...
Yeah, right?
Let's segue into the game this week. So we are playing an Angelical year in the Angelical life of an Angelical cat, or just the Angelical life, which is a game of cats, dance battles, cosmic horror, existential ennui, and silly cat names. It is a two-player game designed for long-term multi-session play. We're going to take a glimpse into this sort of haunted world of humanoid cats.
We're going to get maybe a solid Angelical hour. That might be about
it's going to be an Angelical hour, I think is a good way to describe it. So this is Cats 2019 director Tom Hooper meets David Lynch, which feels appropriate.
That is exactly how you pitched it to me in the DMs, and it's all I need in life, probably ever.
This game was sent to us by the designer. Goat Song Publishing sent this to us, and I saw it and went. I mean, I was like I said to you, I almost didn't send it to you because I was like, this feels too on point.
Is this too on point? Yeah, I have to admit, Well, and I mentioned in the last episode that we did together how just like impressed and flattered and honored I was by feeling so seen by the game choice for that particular episode that we did, which was In the Air Tonight, which is wonderful. It's probably my favorite episode of Party of One, if I'm being honest.
It's one of mine as well.
I really did love that. It was an amazing time. But like that game felt so on brand and so like perfect, and I felt so seen. But I have to say, like, this time when you just, like, directly messaged me and you're like, hey, how would you feel about a game that is just cats and David Lynch? And I was like, oh my god, what have I done that this is how I can be perceived in the universe? I love it.
It's you know what, we all have to own ourselves in that moment when you know what, when you can't look away, when the universe looks in your direction.
I had to take a long, hard look in the mirror that night, yeah. Which is a very Lynchian image, so, you know, I feel like we're ready.
Yeah, you stared in the mirror and a Jellicle cat stared back, sure.
And a Jellicle cat stared back.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the game. We're going to start. I'm going to give us a little bit of setting, and then we'll go ahead and start. This takes place in the city. The city should not exist. Indeed, for an extended time, it did not. It is out of time and space. It is bordered only by the void. It is a city outside of everything. Its only purpose is to connect all of the other worlds, which leads everything to the city at some point.
Sure.
Specifically, it is home to the cats. Cats come here. Some would say after they die, some would say when they first wake up, some would say that cats have always been here, but cats find their way to the city where they walk on two legs, and they find that there are no people, there are roaches and rats, but there are no other animals. There is food in cabinets, but it's hard to say which cabinets contain the food, and it is here that the various clouders of cats come together. And they scrounge and they scrap and they, of course, engage in huge rhythmic dance battles.
Well, naturally. What else is a cat to do?
Yeah, right. So with that in mind, you are going to be creating a cat that has just sort of awoken in the city. Mm-hmm. And we're going to play out your first few adventures, and then we're going to see what happens. To do that, I'm going to ask you for a few pieces of information. First off is your cat's name, pronouns, and I will ask you also for, obviously, like, your cat's gimmick. Right? Because we need to know what type of cat you are.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought about this a little bit, and I don't have, like, any particularly strong images about this cat, but the name that came to me was Mixter Persnicket. I think that Mixter Persnicket is a tomcat, but like sort of a tomcat that's effeminate in the way that all cats are sort of somewhat effeminate. Yeah. I like cat gender. I like the gender of being a cat. I think that's neat. So I think Mixter Persnicket uses he, him pronouns, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he is a male. Yeah. He is just a tomcat. And I think that Persnicket's thing is that there's like a concept of the before life, right? Mm-hmm. Like before awakening in the city. I think that his thing is not necessarily that he came from like a particularly privileged life. I think wherever his life was before, he spent a lot of time outdoors, like maybe as much time outdoors as indoors, but I have this concept of him spending a lot of time on rooftops. Because I like the idea of a cat who's primarily sort of like prowling around on the rooftops or like sitting on balconies and sunning himself and like interacting with birds, suddenly awakening in like the dark underbellies of the streets. And like, so even if he's been a city cat before, that's a totally different viewpoint, right?
Yeah.
So the name that I sort of have in mind is I just have this vision of him as Mixter Persnicket, the high-rise cat.
The high-rise cat that's fuck.
And I think that's kind of his deal.
Yeah. It's perfect. I love it. So, what is Mixter Persnicket's, what is his longing? What is the one thing from the world before that drives him forward through the trials and tribulations of the city? We don't have to decide on this right now, but if you have an idea of the thing that he misses more than anything.
That's a really good question. I don't know that I have a strong concept of that yet.
Okay.
That might be something that we sort of unearth a bit as we go on. I guess it depends on the nature of the city. Like, I know the city is not a specific city, but what kind of city is it? Is it like a, because cities can be pretty different in character. Yeah. Like, is it a Venetian city with lots of, like, you know, rivers and tunnels and alleyways, or is it like more of a New York City? Is it just Pittsburgh because it's like weird in the middle of nowhere?
So let me ask you. Let's both just throw out a city and or a city detail, and then I think that'll kind of give us our starting place for like what the feel of it is.
Oh yeah, I love the idea of it being like a liminal in between, like coexistence of two sort of juxtaposed things.
The visual that I jump to is like neon, so I don't know whether that means. I don't think it's, like, full-on, like, a cyberpunky neon. Like, it's definitely a very dirty... If it is cyberpunky, it's sort of in the Blade Runner or earlier, like, pre an understanding of what, like, computers and neon really kind of looked like.
Right, sure.
A lot of, like, do you know... I think the specific visual point for me for the city is... Do you know the montage in... any cartoon where a character is going on like a bender and they're wandering through a city and there's just signs that are floating in the fog?
Oh, 100%.
That specific visual is my reference point for the city.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. I love that a lot. I think that definitely anchors it in a certain sort of place for me.
Okay.
So I think maybe the thing that Mr. Persnicket longs for again is like the night sky. I think you can't see it very well here.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I think the only stars you see are the blinking of planes, like, which raises the question of who is flying a plane right now, but...
Right, exactly.
We'll get there. Okay. So you'll start the game with the following stats. You'll have Resilience 2.
Let me write this down real quick. Resilience 2.
A Limit 3.
Limit 3.
Primo 0. And 5 rest dice.
Okay, cool.
And then if you open up the rulebook and flip to, I believe it's the last page or the second to last page. So on the second to last page, which is your character sheet, you can also choose 2 advances on the left-hand side. Some of those are bonuses to your stats. Some of them will put your dice size up, which means you'll normally be rolling a d6, but you'll be rolling a d8 or 10 or 12 or what have you. You can pick 2 of these.
Okay, so I can pick 2 of these. I think I'm going to pick, and again, I really don't know like a ton about any of these stats, so I'm immediately drawn to Scavenge. That feels good to me.
All right.
So I'll take plus Scavenge.
What that means is when you scavenge, when you're resting, when you scavenge for food, you roll an extra dice, so you're more likely to succeed.
Okay, are we going to be doing a lot of resting then? Because this is a shorter session.
We'll probably do at least one round of resting to get the full picture of the game.
Okay, well then I'll keep Scavenge, and then I'll also take, what is Resilience versus Limit?
Resilience is the number of consequences you can suffer, the amount of, like, stuff that can weigh you down before you are knocked out of a dance battle. Like, it is the amount of pearl necklaces that Rumpelteazer can put on you before you are taken out of the song. Sure.
Okay, cool. And then Limit.
So limit is the amount of consequences you can take before you start to lose your abilities. So once you pass your limit, you start to lose abilities until you also get to your resilience, at which point you're taken out of a conflict.
Gotcha. Okay.
Let me just make sure that is correct. Oh, so yeah, resilience is basically the consequences you take in a clash, and then consequences outside of that, they push you to your limit.
Okay, got it. Cool. And then the dice size up advancements are just like bonuses to when I have to do rolls, right?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'll take a plus resilience.
Okay.
So does that mean I start with 3 instead?
Yes.
All right, great. My problem with games like this, in terms of like the mechanics of them, and I'm finding this out more and more about myself as I go along, is that I really like losing games.
Fair.
I really like in games such as this, in games that lean more towards anything that's not D&D, losing is very fun. I think that exploring like the conditions of failure in a game like this that is narratively driven is so interesting to me that when it comes to character creation, I like never want to make my character stronger.
I completely understand that. I know that feeling exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, cool. So that's what I'll do. I'll take a plus scavenge and a plus resilience. So I have resilience 3, limit 3, primo 0, and I have 5 rest dice. Ooh, we need to talk about my coat coloration.
Oh yes, please tell me about the coat coloration. Tell me what your cat looks like.
I think that Mixter Persnicket is, well, okay, I think he just looks like my cat. So my cat is a black and white cat. He's not like straight up tuxedo cat with the little like vest on him. He's sort of like patchworky black and white splotches. But my favorite thing about my cat is that his face is mostly white with like black ears. But on his nose, it looks like he has a black paw print mark. It looks like somebody just like plopped a black paw print on his face. So I think that's what Mixter Persnicket looks like. He's like a black and white patchwork cat, but with a paw print mark on his nose.
I love it. Okay. I love it. It's very good. And I want you to know it's very good.
Thank you. I feel very valid in this space.
All right. So with that, we are ready to begin. We're going to play. So the way that this game works is I have a specially assembled deck of cards. We're not going to go through the whole deck. We'll probably go through the first 3 or 4 tops, but each card corresponds to an encounter where you're going to meet a rival cat.
Sweet.
You're going to have a dance battle, an interaction. You're going to collect some abundances. Those are things that you assemble and gather. Those are things such as music and food and comfort. You will also, specifically, those are comfort, knowledge, music, reputation, and wealth.
Cool.
You will also, cats might also want things from you, and you'll try to either dance battle them to get out of it or be able to give them the things that they want. All of this is on your journey to find your place in the city and survive a year until the choice is made.
Right on. Okay, cool. Take me away.
So, where do you find yourself when you first enter the city? Like, what is Mixter Persnicket's, what is his opening situation look like? Where do we find him? Early in his journey, I think you've started to figure out what is going on. We've seen sort of the opening musical number.
Sure,
where we've seen, Jellicle songs for Jellicle cats. And now we zoom in on you. Where are you?
I like the idea of there being maybe kind of like a fairground or like a low budget amusement park or something to that effect, where there are lots of like weird asymmetrical structures and like strange things that are sort of juxtaposed right in the middle of what is otherwise like a functional city. So you have like building, and then like in the middle, sort of wedged into this awkward area, you get like weird steel structures and like awkward lights, and it's kind of run down and like a little bit dingy, but still stands kind of in stark contrast to everything else around it. And maybe there's like a big fence that sort of surrounds it. And I think that Mixter Persnicket wakes up sort of inside where this fairground is, but where you can see through the fence to the city outside. So sort of in like this liminal space inside of a liminal space. And I think that waking up maybe like on this deserted fairground, looking out at something which is ironically much more colorful and vibrant and bright than this place is.
Yeah. And so you are wandering through this space, right? You're figuring out, you are piecing together where you are, and suddenly from all sides you just hear, boring. Why is this place so boring? Why is there never anything happening in the city? And you hear this and it's just like a whisper and then it's gone, right? Like it's echoing through these spaces, through these asymmetrical, structures and buildings.
And it's very rhythmic, right?
Yeah, of course. And it's very it has the feeling of like the Jason sound effect, the sound you hear when Jason, it is that kind of thing, except it's the word, just boring is being repeated. And it is, and you hear this and suddenly you see for a split second a small cat, right? Like, it doesn't initially look like larger than a kitten. He just kind of dashes by you, pops his head in a window, and he is just like small, wiry, but also kind of like light and mischievous and puckish, of like pops in like, boring, come on, you're here, you should be having fun. And pops in again, like pops out from maybe like a sewer grate, right? Like,
sure.
Oh, why are the new ones always so stoic and serious? And like is popping around. This is Titany, the littlest cat.
Oh.
And Titany is jabbing at you and finally like drops in front of you and like looks around, puts his hands on his hips and like, starts to like purse his lips and tap his... There does not seem to be anything happening in this city. Or does there? There's always something happening. You just have to know where to look, or know where to look within yourself. And he's sort of walking around you now and kind of like jabbing at your legs a little bit. Like he's got a little tiny like cane, I picture, and kind of like catching your feet, trying to like get you to kind of march or skip or step. And he's like, there just doesn't seem to be anything. Come on, here, you and me are going to go on a journey today. I would trust that you would... I'm looking for a party. You're not it, so we're going to go find it. And specifically, Titany is asking you for a small party, which is a comfort abundance, which you don't have.
Oh, I certainly don't. No small parties here.
So how do you react as Titany starts to get irritated and you start to hear the snaps and the people start to pulsate and you feel that music and rhythm start to pump in as we cut into our first clash?
Oh, I have this mental image in my head of like Titany sort of dashing and darting about and then comes out and like, starts circling me and jabbing at me, and maybe like I'm sort of sitting there or standing there and I start to follow him with like my head, and then of course my head doesn't turn all the way around, so like maybe I sort of do this awkward spin and like stumble back a little bit. And I think that I become aware of like the imposition of more of these voices and forces around me. And yeah, I don't know, not having played this before, like is there some sort of way to initiate this? Like, what does starting one of these things look like? I'm assuming this would sort of be started by Titany, especially at this point.
Yeah, he starts to kind of jab at you and starts to kind of sing a song about like the city, and this is how we kind of get a little bit of the story about how the city was always here, but Bast, the Egyptian god, brought it to life, and you're kind of getting pushed into this like piece, all these kind of legend things as he starts to dance kind of at you, right? And the snaps start to come, and like is formally like doing the song kind of at you in the way that the cats and cats do their songs, just kind of at
naturally.
you.
I think I'm largely kind of like wide-eyed, pupils very dilated in the way that, cats sometimes are specifically. Maybe there's a moment where like I sort of stumble backwards, like overwhelmed and clearly new at this. Maybe even the audience might get the impression that for whatever reason, this cat body that I am now in is a bit of an unnatural cat body for cats where I come from. And I think maybe I like stumble into a pole or a cord or something, and maybe all of a sudden like a string of lights that has long been out like lights up along the span of the twisted leg of some low budget ride or something that towers over us. And maybe like there are some lights and some background music that starts, and weird colors are now sort of flashing over the group of us, and it's very, very
it's overwhelming, overstimulating.
Yeah, it's very, very overstimulating.
And suddenly like you find yourself in this like lighted space, and like all of everything, the rides, the amusements, everything, the city in the distance is gone except for this white space. No larger than maybe like 10 by 10 feet. Maybe not even that large. And there's just pulsating bodies around you. all of them kind of just moving back and forth, and you realize, like, you can't go anywhere. You are trapped in this space as Titany is just, like, dancing at you and singing about all the parties that Titany has gone to, and you have no choice but to dance. So here's how you dance. It is your turn to... First off, you will dance, and the way this works is you are going to roll 1d6.
Okay. Ooh, not that one. I want this other d6. There we go.
What you want is to collect a number of steps, 2-step, 3-step, 4-step, etc., equal to Titany's clash stats. I'll tell you what those are after I've explained it. And the way you collect steps is you roll a d6, then you roll another d6 with the intent of rolling a higher number.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
You can continue to roll as many times as you want. You have a theoretically infinite number of dice, but if you roll equal to or less than your previous result, all of your steps go away. So there's a risk management of, like, how elaborate your dance routine is can come back to haunt you.
I love that. That's so fun. Who wrote this game?
This was written by... Pull up their name. This was written by Midsummer Mindberg.
Midsummer, this rules.
This rules. This is a very, like, good mechanic for a dance battle. Like, for a dance battle specifically, it's very good.
I was going to say, as somebody who went to a performing arts college and took 2 semesters of Broadway tap, like, this is a very good mechanic.
It's very good. I like it a lot.
Okay, so my first roll was a 6.
Okay.
So I'm not going to roll higher than that.
Then I'm actually going to take my turn first. What you want to get is a 2-step and a 2-step. You can always use more dice, more steps for a smaller result, but the numbers that you want is just 2 2-steps.
Okay.
So I'm now going to roll. I am rolling 4d4. And what I want to get is slightly different than yours. I am giving you a piteous stare. I'm giving you some smoldering glances. I'm going to make you fall in love with me. I'm going to inflict the adoring consequence to try and, like, draw you into, like, the chase throughout the city to get you caught up in the nightlife.
Oh, man, of course.
So I'm going to roll 4 4-sided dice. I want to get a 1, 2, 3, and a 4, and any results I get towards that are locked in place.
Okay.
So I rolled a 4, a 3, a 4, and a 4. So my 4 and 3 will lock in place, which means next turn I will be rolling 2 dice, and I want to get a 1 and a 2.
Got it. Okay.
So I am giving you the most haunting look as I tell you about all the hottest parties, everything in this city that I swear you simply have to see. You simply will not understand it. There is no way to experience the city except to experience the city.
I think my ears are a little bit flattened back, like maybe visibly overwhelmed, but despite that, my question mark tail is flicking curiously.
All right.
So I rolled a 6 last time. I start over every time, right?
Yes, you start over every time.
Okay, so I'm not trying to collect anything new. Okay. So that time I rolled a 5.
Okay.
So, so what I'm trying to do if I roll again is to roll equal to or higher than that. Is that right?
You want to roll specifically higher. You want to roll a 6 on your next dice.
Got it. Okay. And if I choose not to roll again...
I believe nothing. I believe you get nothing.
Okay. If I do roll again and fail...
You also get nothing. You lose nothing.
Then I might as well roll again, right?
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Then I'm going to roll again, and I rolled a 4.
Okay. Then I'm going to roll my 2d4 and try to get a 1 and a 2.
Okay, sweet.
That's a 3 and a 4, so I make no progress. I am still... I tell you about, the bowls of milk as the bowls of milk that are a mile wide, cupboards full of catnip, milk bowls a mile wide. I tell you, you are going to see some things tonight that you will never, ever forget.
Ooh, okay. Roll again. That's a 5. Why am I... God, I'm so bad at dance battling.
You were rolling some hot D6s here.
I rolled a 5 and another 5.
Okay. I feel like this is right for your first dance battle, is getting a little overwhelmed
100%.
Here.
I think I'm very, very overwhelmed. I think that, again, like, ears are back. Maybe at 1 or 2 points, you sort of, like, extend a hand and draw me into a part of the dance, but I fumble the steps.
Yep. And as soon as you fumble, I, like, throw my hand up. I'm like, pah! Forget you. I've rolled a 2 and a 2, so I will lock that 2 in place, which means I have to roll a 1.
Right, okay. Come on, D6. God. I rolled a 6.
Okay.
Why? These dice love me too much. I'm pulling out different D6s.
These dice love you too much.
And in all the wrong ways.
Yes. So that is a 2. So I'm still telling you tales of, there is not a neither Tabby nor Tomcat can resist the call of the city.
We're repeating the chorus again, which is why you keep getting the same thing. Okay, that time I rolled a 3.
Okay.
And then followed it up with another 3.
Okay. That's a 3. We are like, this is the opening dance battle, which makes sense that it is like long.
This opening number is really long and not that interesting. Critics agree it's not the best part of the film.
It's an opening number.
Okay, we go. That time I rolled a 1.
Okay.
And then a 4.
Okay, so that is a 2-step. That's going to knock out one of Titney's 2-steps.
Great. Okay.
You could keep going, which could knock out both of his 2-steps in a single turn, or you could stop here and knock out one of them.
You know what? Let's try it again. Let's roll big.
Okay.
And now this dice gives me a 2. So, you know what? Never mind.
Okay. That is also a 2. Yet, I think what we see is a moment where, like, you almost, it's actually very good, now that I think it through.
Uh-huh.
Because that's definitely a moment where, like, you almost outdance me, right? Like, there's definitely that moment. This is you learning, this is you learning to dance. This is Mixter Persnicket, like doing that incredible flourish, and then I stop cold in my tracks, and I have to like recover myself. I'm now picturing a little vest that I have to adjust, like.
And the other cats who are watching like see me do this thing, and there's kind of this expectant hush that falls over, and then all eyes are on you.
And I have to like compose myself as you have another moment to dance.
All right, I roll a 4, followed by a. That one rolled off the desk. 4 followed by another 4.
Okay. That is another 2. It is, yeah. I think they stare to you, and like there's that moment where you just feel all of these eyes like set upon you, right? Mm-hmm. And there's that moment of like, how do you act in that moment? You may continue to roll. I rolled a 2.
All right. That's a 4 followed up by a 3.
And that is a 3. If we are just like staring each other down, right? Like I think at this point we've started both dancing. Like now you're getting the taps to it, and now we're both kind of dancing. Like we're fully into the battle now.
I feel like for a minute maybe it was like my favorite part of any opening musical number, where there was like a tap tap on your side and like a look at me, and like I do the same thing, and like I'm learning the steps, but I'm not quite outpacing you.
Yeah, I'm like, and I'm kind of like, forgive the pun, please. I'm asking you to forgive the pun. I'm playing cat and mouse with you now. Like 100%. I'm like teaching you the dance moves in that way that like I'm very obviously like a bit of a spoiled child, but also older and wiser than I let on.
And there's like a little bit of generosity there, a little bit of playfulness, a little bit of like, all right, new kid. But at the same time, like you're not quite ready to let go of your ego that much.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a 5 followed by a 6.
All right, that's the 2-step. That's one of Titney's 2 steps down.
All right.
And that is a 1, so I'm going to inflict a consequence upon
you. Okay. I choke in the final moment.
Actually, this is perfect. So you're still in the fight. You're still in the battle, but you take a consequence of adoring.
Ooh, okay.
And this is perfectly timed, too, because what happens here is you finally just whip out, like, a killer dance move and outdance me. And in that moment, like, this stops being a dance battle and starts being a duet.
Ooh, I love that.
Like, that's when we start dancing, doing coordinated moves, and now the music has swelled up to the final chorus, and we are just, like, we are truly dancing with each other. As it is, you and I, like, tearing it up together in that way that, like, that's kind of that, I think, if I may project, I think that's that adoring feeling, right? Is like, now I'm your dance partner.
100%. Yes, absolutely.
So now you may roll again. You take that consequence and roll again. As long as it's below your limit, you are able to continue to roll. Or your resilience, rather. As long as it's under your resilience, you may continue to roll.
Okay, so I can have up to 3 consequences, right?
Yes.
I can take consequences up to... Okay, perfect. So then that is a doofa 5, followed by a 1.
Okay.
It's a wash for me.
That is a 1, 2, 2, and 2. So I'm going to take a 1 and a 2. Hold on to my other 2 dice. As I am now, like, fully, it is a fully duet dance. And it is truly, like, tearing it up with you. As I'm, like, truly being like, you can just explore the city. Like, we can explore the city together. I can be your guide to the world of the city. You have no idea what's out there, and I can show you.
Maybe there's even this moment of, like, peeling back a corner of the fence, like, from the park out into the rest of the city, capital T, capital C.
Yep.
All right, that's a 3, followed up by a 4.
That's it.
Bazinga.
You have bested Titney the littlest cat. What does the magical flourish look like when you best Titney the cat? Both in terms of, like, the dance moment and also just, like, what is Mixter overcoming Titney look like?
Ooh, I think the dance move that I want to pull off is like a really cool sort of tap thing where there's like a sequence and maybe there's like spin, like perfectly executed pirouette. And then I think because Mixter Persnicket is the high-rise cat, I want it to have like some element of sort of acrobaticness to it. I think that's his thing. Like, if this were a musical and I were casting it, whoever plays this cat needs to have an element of gymnastics to their dance ability. And so I think it's one of those really dope moves where, like, you sort of run up the wall a little bit and do a backflip. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
That's the move, I think. Landing in, like, just, what's, like, a really cool way to land that move? I think that...
in like the superhero pose where it's one hand down, one hand up, and it like you then like your head whips up.
That's kind of what I was thinking, yeah. It's like a 3-point anime landing, but out of a backflip, out of a tap dance backflip. And I think what we get is we get this shot of like this cool move, I land, everybody sort of gasps, and then like you follow the track of my head up as like my head snaps up and I look, and I think just over the fence, I don't see the glimmer of the night sky, but I do see the glimmer of lights on the buildings just beyond the fairground. And for a second, they almost look like the same thing.
Yes, and it's perfect. I love it. So, and I think how you kind of exit out of this is Titney kind of opens up the fence, and I almost picture, like, as you're doing that, like, you go above, right? Like, you flip, and, like, your segue out of this moment is, like, you flip above into this, and, like, we watch you along the tops of the fences, and we watch you, like, skipping and dancing your way through.
Yes, I love it.
Until you find yourself, like, and we watch you kind of effortlessly slide down we watch you, so, a little bit of background, just a little bit of gameplay clarification. Like I said, the way that we are determining encounters in Angelical Life is I have this specially assembled deck of cards.
Cool.
Each one corresponds to an entry in the book for one of the rival cats.
I love it.
And then and then there's a map that you follow, like a progress tracker that tells you like when you're facing an encounter, when you are resting. At certain points, I am discarding cards that move you closer to the ending of the game.
Cool. Okay.
And so the card that I just drew here, I'm very excited about. All of this is to say that the card that I just drew, which is the 2 of clubs.
Quick mechanical question before you pull that sweet reveal. Do I clear consequences after a clash, or do I keep them?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I believe you keep them. Yes, you want to keep them.
Okay, sweet. So I feel like this adoring is maybe now a little bit more widespread, a little more all-encompassing. Maybe I'm just very enamored of the bright lights in the big city.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. You slide your way down a fire escape. We watch you gracefully do this. You land, and you're in a back alley. At which point, there is a rustling from a trash can as a cat pulls out like a very cartoony fish skeleton.
Yes, of course.
Just starts gnawing on it, and partially like just the way that this cat is and this cat comes out. They are wiry and orange and black and matted fur. They are rats. Like the rats all start to peek out of their little thing and start to like whistle and like click a little tune as we meet Trashington the trash cat.
Trashington! Oh!
Trashington's official description, Trashington is just the worst cat. Like, so awful. They always smell, always digging through trash piles. They are extremely gross, and no one likes them.
Oh, Trashington.
I love Trashington.
I love Trashington. I want to imagine that Trashington's musical number is very, like, Jammin' in the Jungle style, like, just lots of weird stomp-esque percussion, and, like...
The rats are definitely doing stomp. Trashington is voiced by Danny DeVito.
Thank God.
That is important to know.
Is that in, like, the official character lore?
No, this is a Jeff Stormer detail.
Made. I love it. I love that.
Trashington, like, emerges and is just furious and outraged and, like, just kind of jabs at you as they are, like, Sandwich. Come on. You're no good. And starts to do their weird, like, techno like stomp dance number. How do you react to Trashington the trash cat?
I think I'm alarmed. I think, I just came from this weird ethereal fairground where Tittany promised me that the city was full of plenty, and the first thing I find is this horrible trash cat jabbing at me for food. Like, where are the dishes of cream a mile wide? Where is the abundant catnip cabinets? Like, what is happening here?
And I think, I'm going to ask you for your first dance roll, but as you roll your dice, I think that's what the first verse is about, right? Is Trashington being like, you don't listen to, it's a don't believe the hype song, right?
Sure.
It's, you think it's bright lights and shining. I'm showing you what the city really is, and it stinks. The city stinks, and Trashington stinks, and everything stinks. If you think anything doesn't stink, I'll tell you what, that's you thinking you know what doesn't stink.
I love it.
We say you know what because the buttholes were edited out.
Release the Stormer cut.
Release it. All right. Roll your dice.
Sweet.
You are again trying for two steps.
Okay. Well, there's a 2. I'm going to follow it up with a 1. Cool.
All right. I'm going to roll 3d4.
Sweet.
Trying to get 2 4s.
Okay.
That is a 4. That is a 4.
Holy shit.
And that is a 1.
Okay.
So that means I'm inflicting on you the stinky consequence.
Oh, the stinky consequence.
I think that is exactly what happens is I like guide you through a set piece of like pure trash, right? Like I'm like this is the, and I'm like kind of mocking. It's a little bit of an inversion of Tittany's song where it's like I am showing you like the real city. So like I show you like a bowl of milk, but it is like curdled and rotten, and I like push you into it.
I was gonna say
and
I'm very much
like,
seeing a moment where like you sort of shove me in the chest to make a point, and I stumble backwards into it.
Yep. As I continue my song, so you're gonna take the stinky consequence. I forgot to mention you do get 1 experience from outdancing Tittany. If you get 3 experience, you can mark an advancement.
Sweet. Okay.
So what is your next move as you wipe
dance
off
roll
the
again.
very comical cottage cheese that you're covered in?
So I rolled a 2, and if I could just keep that, that's one of my 2 steps, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just do that then. I'm not playing games with these dice today. I'm going to keep that 2-step. And I think that maybe, what can I do here? I think that I pull myself up out of this and I sort of brush myself off, sort of shimmy shake out my fur a little bit. And maybe there's a moment where, like, I don't know, maybe I can, like, pull some piece of garbage out that's, like, a piece of brightly colored glass or something, and, like, the lights can sort of, like, filter through it in a way that sort of creates maybe this weirdness of, like, carnival glass light in the alleyway.
Yeah, you pull out, like, a chunk of broken glass, but it forms, like, it forms a prism.
Yeah.
You flash it, it hits me, and for a split second, I am wearing, like, a full tuxedo. Like, I am a beautiful tuxedo cat. And then you pull it away, and I'm back to being Trashington.
Yes, perfect.
And I'm gonna roll my 3d4 again, as I'm, like, and, like, it kind of, for a brief moment, like, there's maybe a few lines about, like, you know, kind of echoing the previous song about, like, the lights and the brightness, and it kind of, like, is this moment where I kind of have to pull you back to reality with a 3, a 4, and a 3. So I'm going to lock that 4 and roll 2 dice on my next turn. But I'm like pulling at you and I'm like, no, it stinks. It stinks. Everything stinks. This city is trash. And I know trash.
All right, let's see. I'm going to roll a 3. Followed up by a... Wait, I'm trying to get another 2-step, right?
Yeah. You want to get a 4 or better.
Okay, sweet. Aha, I got a 4!
All right, you have bested Trashington.
Haha!
Trashington, so yeah, there's this, and like, I'm telling you all of this, but for, like, and suddenly, you know, what does it look like? How do you best Trashington the Trash Cat?
I think that I sort of get roped into, like, what you're saying for a second and maybe, like, start sort of tentatively following your steps. And then you say something about how, like, there's nothing good here, there's no one good here, that includes you. I get kind of miffed and irritated, and maybe I, like, slam over a trash can, more brightly colored stuff, like, flies out of it, and then we've got sort of, like, these shards of colorful glass, like, not only sprinkled across the floor of the alleyway like diamonds, and we've got, like, maybe something in there becomes, like, colorful streamers that sort of drape themselves across the fire escape. And I think I start just, like, making a ruckus in here and, like, kicking over trash cans and, like, roping the rats into this, like, weird thing that we're doing. And sort of just strewing, like, pieces of garbage into something else, like, to the effect of, you know, if you choose to look at it as trash, it's trash, but I want to see something different.
And I think, like, the final verse of the song is Trashington fully buying into your way of seeing it, right? Like, they are kicking and dancing, and the two of you just have, like, the most wonderful time.
And it's this very, like, raucous, like, Vegas-y thing by the end, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, it is trash, but it's colorful, glittery trash.
Oh, yeah, it's for sure. I mean, and Trashington is fully in the tuxedo. Now, mind you, it is like a patchwork tuxedo. Like,
oh, it's a patchwork tuxedo, yeah.
An elbow is missing, but it's still a tuxedo, and they look great.
Really, really gaudy, like sequin bow tie.
Oh, for sure. And the two of you do your huge thing, and they finally, like, everyone's clapping, the rats scatter, and they pull you in close, and they just whisper in your ear, like, do not listen to anything anyone says. Everyone in this city is going to try and lie to you and manipulate you and play you against what you really want. The only thing that matters, and they kind of jab you, like, a little too hard and a little too sharply, like, right in the middle of the chest, is what you want and how you are going to get through this city. Remember that. That is the choice. Forget the choice. That is the choice. And there's this moment of, like, very seriousness. As they immediately then spin around and, like, go back to, like, all right, rats, let's party.
And I think I'm sort of left, like, rubbing my sternum where they jabbed me a little bit too harshly and looking back out at the city, and my eyes are still very wide, but a little bit cautious now, maybe.
Yeah.
Not as, like, alarmed and overwhelmed as earlier. Did Tidney in his original song mention the choice at all, or is this the first I've heard of it? I think kind of like how ominous that is.
I like that this is the first reference to it. I like that Tidney was just all about, like, glamour, and this is the first time you've heard about this, like, thing that you have no context for what it is.
Like, yeah, don't believe anybody about the choice, and I'm like, whoa, what's that? Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah, and so now you are left by yourself. Slightly.
Do I get another experience?
You actually get an abundance of knowledge. That is what that sort of that is what that ominous reference to to the choices is an abundance of knowledge. Abundances are resources that you have earned, found, or wrested away from your rivals. They are powerful bargaining chips, but represent the splendor that you're able to wrap yourself in during your long sojourn through the city.
Cool.
Their presence eases burdens and opens doors. Their absence makes the world all the colder. Basically, like, what that means is you have learned some things. You've learned some secrets.
Which I can now wield, like, in the way that I carry myself, right?
Yes.
Cool.
And so with that, we come to our first rest scene.
Ooh, we're resting now.
Yes, you're left by yourself, right? Like, this is, we get to, like, an ensemble number as we kind of watch you scamper through the background.
Cool, I love that.
So here's how this works. You have 5 rest dice.
Mm-hmm.
You may roll each of those dice. You may assign any number of those dice to 3 actions. Scavenging, which is scavenging for food, trying to find resources, trying to find things. You also have a bonus dice for scavenge. So you are guaranteed to roll at least 1 dice for scavenge. You can also reflect, which allow you to convert your consequences to experience.
Okay.
You can also heal, which will allow you to shake off consequences. You don't get to turn it into experience, but healing lets you get rid of multiple consequences quickly.
Ooh, good quest. Okay, cool. So I think I want to, do I assign dice pools and then roll them to see what happens? Or can I, like, roll one, see how it goes, and then...
We can go take it 1 dice roll at a time, especially because that'll let us tell the story of what this sort of period looks like.
Yeah, totally. So I think I automatically get 1 scavenging. So that doesn't take anything away from my pool of 5, right?
No.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and roll my, like, guaranteed scavenge die. And that's a d6 as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. That is a 6.
6. You gain 2 abundances of your choice. Those abundances are, I will remind you, those abundances, there are 5 kinds of abundances. You could take comfort, food, warmth, shelter, all the basic necessities, bumped up to an opulent degree. You can take knowledge, which is forbidden lore and hidden secrets about the universe. You can take music, of course. You can take reputation, which is your sheer, like, your presence in the city, the amount that people know you. Or you can take wealth, which is money and wonderful things.
Oh, well, all of those are pretty cool. I think I am going to take 1 for music.
Okay.
So I get 1 abundance of music. And then I have 1 more, right?
Yes.
I kind of like the idea of taking 1 of reputation, just like I'm starting to make waves. Like, I showed up and, like, I've had these 2 kind of flashy scenarios and now I'm just sort of scampering through the background. But I think maybe even this ensemble number is about, like, people starting to sort of murmur my name.
It's a little bit of a montage of, like
who's the new kid? Yeah.
It's Mixter Persnicket's song 1, as it's sort of a montage of cats singing about you. And, like, doing that very kind of game of telephone, like, Mixter Persnicket.
Yeah, and a lot of it is me sort of, like, skittering along the edges of fences or prowling, like, up on fire escapes is sort of like, I'm not quite the high-rise cat right now. I haven't ascended fully to where I used to be, but I am getting, like, a little bit of elevation and, like, starting to be able to look down on things and feel a little bit more comfortable. I think that my dancing is more elegant when I'm up on something. Cool. So I got 2 abundances there, which rules.
Yep.
I would like to... So I have 5 more dice left. I want to reflect, maybe? Turn some of this into experience.
Oh, I see that. Okay, yeah. Roll me a d6 for reflect.
Okay, sweet. That is another 6.
Dang.
These dice roll high and do nothing else, I guess.
Okay, a 6 on a reflect, you can convert 3 up to 3 consequences to experience.
Okay, well, I only have 2 consequences.
Which, plus your 1 experience from Titany, means you get to mark in advance.
Sweet. Okay, great. So I will, let me look at these advancements again. Maybe I will take... What does Primo do? We haven't used that yet.
Primo is the number of resets allowed in a clash. When you roll below your previous result, you may choose to spend a Primo to reset the tempo, count that latest result as successful, So if you roll a 1, 4, and then 3, you can spend that primo to turn that action into an automatic 3-step. So basically, you can then save. You get a number of saves. Basically, you can save your actions.
Oh, right on. That rules.
That's very good.
I'll take one of those.
This game is mechanically very good. Like the sheer mechanics of how everything interacts is very good, and it's very cool.
It's really, really neat. I usually like the fewer mechanics in a game, the better for me, just because I like to drive everything as narratively as possible. But I do think that this is really cool. Like, this is crunchy in a way that I find very satisfying because the world is very complicated and weird. But it's also, like, very elegant in the way that everything sort of, like, creates momentum with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everything works together nicely, but nothing feels like nothing feels like I don't understand it, or like that everything feels like I immediately get it, and I also see how it clicks together.
Yeah, definitely. And like it seems complicated, but as soon as I do a thing once, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like, that seems like it should work that way.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I love it.
Well, that rules.
So you have
so I'll take that one
You
primo.
have 3 more dice.
I have 3 more dice, which is a lot of dice. I have no consequences. I have 1 primo. My experience resets.
So I would recommend taking those. So I would probably just scavenge for those other 3 abundances.
I'll just scavenge some more. That sounds dope to me. Okay, so scavenge die. That's a 1.
Great. So you are taking a consequence.
Fun.
You take the exhausted consequence. I think what it is like, we're seeing you do all of these acrobatic stunts, right? Like, because I think what it is there's this sort of like horror moment where you like find yourself doing more than you thought you had planned on. Like, you're just it's turning from like dance into desperation as people are whispering, as you are hearing these things. It's just like dancing, and you're just going harder and harder, and you're suddenly feeling like you're suddenly for a moment thinking about what Trashington said about how everyone is trying to get you to do something, and it just feels like by whispering about you, everyone is starting to push you a little harder, a little faster.
Right. Yeah, and the tempo maybe of the song that's going on like starts picking up. And so maybe like there's a sequence where like I go into, again, one of these like very elegant sort of pirouettes, but then it turns into another one and another one and another one, and there's sort of like this franticness to it as the tempo accelerates a bit. And then I sort of stop maybe like just before I would fall over the edge of some like fence post or building or something, and there's sort of this moment of precarity of like being on the edge and not having realized that that's how far I had gone.
Yes. And so roll me 2 more scavenge, or you can roll me 2 more scavenge, or you can try to convert that exhaustion into experience.
No, I think I'll keep that consequence, actually. I'm gonna roll 2 more,
okay,
unless this next scavenge die goes really badly.
Yeah.
And that's a 3.
Okay, you gain 1 abundance of your choice.
Cool. Okay, I'll take an abundance of comfort. I think that makes sense to me if I'm scavenging.
Yeah. We're seeing you we're seeing you sneak into some places and open those cabinets and find that catnip, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're seeing you do those things and find a little bit of that city that you were promised.
And that's even a little bit more like menacing, I think, because there's this moment of like, whoa, okay, maybe there's like a dark underbelly to this thing that's happening here. I'm a little freaked out. And then like those same cats that are kind of edging you on and like making you go a little bit harder than you two are like, oh no, shh, don't worry about it. No, the city's great. Shh, come here. Like, no. Here's everything. Like, here, let us show you where the good stuff is. All right, and then let me roll another one. Boom. It's another 6, baby.
Oh, take 2 more abundances.
Goodness gracious. Well, you know what? Just so I can collect them all, I'll take 1 of wealth.
Okay.
And then I will take another 1 of music. I like that one.
And I think that segues us into our next encounter. As like, you're hearing this music, and suddenly like there's just, you're hearing music, it's pumping and it's throbbing, and it's like, it's really building, right? Like, we're seeing rats kind of trumpeting around and they're doing a lot of the stomp music. And suddenly, like, you hear it, but suddenly you hear, like, a splash.
Ooh.
And it sounds like or maybe you don't even hear it. You feel a splash. And everything sounds like it's underwater. You know, the music sounds distant, and you see it. Like, you see people dancing around you. You feel comfortable. You see people whispering about you, but it all kind of sounds like it's from...
Ooh.
And suddenly it's fine. And then suddenly it's... And, like, there's that... And you're just kind of looking around trying to understand why.
And maybe, like, having a little bit of trouble catching my balance, which is, like, a very unsettling thing for a cat.
Yeah. And you're kind of, like, looking around, trying to catch your balance, and you swear you see a cat. You swear you see a cat just, like, leaning against a wall watching you. Mm-hmm. You swear you can see a cat, but yet you can't quite get your eyes on them.
Ooh, okay.
They can't quite... And slowly, like, you just feel... You know, everything, you look around and suddenly you just start to see, like, water stains on the walls of the very nice, like, bedroom that you're in, right? And suddenly everybody seems just very wet. Everybody seems like everything is suddenly sweating, but also just soaked and slippery and sticky. And you suddenly finally, like, cat kind of just emerges. And it is Fred, the hollow cat.
Oh.
And Fred starts to, like, sing his song.
Does Fred, like, have my face and speak with my voice and, like, put a hand around my... Like, I'm very threatened by Fred.
I love Fred singing in your voice. I love that. I think you hear Fred's voice and your voice, like, laid over top of each
and
other.
I'm not saying anything, but, like, I do hear my voice.
Yeah, you hear the duet. And Fred starts to tell you the story about Fred was a quiet cat. Never the main character. When suddenly Ebenezer expressed his affection to the cat, but Fred was an Angelical. Ebenezer was a devil cat. Their love could not last.
Ooh.
And so the Angelicals chased Fred into the river, and he emerged as a hollow cat.
Oh.
And he is haunted, and he is whispering all of this, and he kind of, like, gestures at like the kind of fineries that you've kind of cat burglared. Again, forgive the pun, they're just there. We just have to accept them. He kind of gestures at the jewelry that you're wearing, and he kind of, like, scoffs at it, and he's like, "Angelical treasures mean nothing to me. And he kind of gestures again at, like, the food the food that is on the table in front of you, and he's like, the finest feast of a devil cat is not what Fred needs now." And, like, he's doing this, and he's wearing this, like, long, very kind of almost Revolutionary War trench coat type deal that's just dripping wet.
Ooh.
And he's whispering all these things about, like, oh no, like, I do not need the prizes of a devil cat. I do not need the love and affection of an Angelical. I need, and he stops and he slams a foot in front of you. I need pain. And suddenly, like, you just feel like, again, you are the only person in this world except for Fred staring at you. He is demanding pain. He is demanding that you take the suffering consequence, or else you have to clash.
That's freaky, Fred. So I can choose between clashing or just taking the consequence?
Or just taking the suffering consequence.
Interesting. Narratively, the part of my brain that's sitting in the backseat and watching this movie feels like this isn't a clash. I feel like this is just a consequence. You know what I mean? Like, sort of narratively,
yeah.
This makes more sense to me that this wouldn't be an equivalent meeting of powers. I think this would just sort of be like I just had this period of, like, coming into, like, 4 more abundances and, like, life is good, and then this cat shows up out of nowhere and I'm totally thrown off, and this is the first hollow cat I've ever seen, and everything is so freaky, and this cat is just, like, pain, and I'm like, whoa, okay, I don't think I have a choice in the matter. You know what I mean? Like, I think this feels very direct to me. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and mark suffering.
Okay. And as that is happening, the second you accept that suffering, right? The second you kind of you feel it, right? Like, and suddenly you are wet, and suddenly, like, you are cold and shivering, And then suddenly you start to hear rumbling. You start to hear like whispers as suddenly like the hollow cats start to rumble about like, are you accepting the offer of the hollow cats?
I think I like stumble forward onto like all four horrible, badly edited hand paws and maybe like cough up river water, and the things around my neck feel so much heavier.
And suddenly like Fred like claps his hands together and like backs into the wall, and you see like this disgusting water stain. As suddenly sitting on the table munching on an apple is Thimblejack the hollow cat.
Ooh.
Another hollow cat. A-air pronouns.
Okay.
Thimblejack begins telling you about how air life was not good in the city, and how A was once nice. A was once had a great life. A was once pretty much like you. And then the city got to M, and now A are a hollow cat. And they are whispering like, I could have the riches of a devil cat. I could have all of these prizes, but I don't want those things. Hollow cats don't need those things. Hollow cats need pain. And Thimblejack is also demanding you take the suffering consequence.
Ooh.
Or clash.
No, I want to dance with Thimblejack.
All right. Okay. Then make your move as you valiantly lash back against the thrashing pain of the hollow cat.
All right, am I trying to collect two steps again?
You are trying to collect a 1-step, a 2-step, and a 3-step.
Aha! Things are so much more interesting now. All right.
Especially when Thimblejack starts using air abilities.
Oof.
A have some very interesting dice abilities.
Oh, that's very fascinating. So how do I collect a 1-step?
1-step is, I think you just roll that one dice.
Okay, great. So I can just, if I roll something and I choose not to add any other dice to it, I can just take that as a 1-step?
Yeah. You can choose to say, I'm taking this as a 1-step, but then you can also choose to go further and try to clear out that 2-step or 3-step.
Cool. Okay, sweet. Well, that is a literal 1, so I'm going to go ahead and try to keep going, because that is maybe the best chance I'll get. And that's a 2. So life's looking pretty good right about now. I'm going to go ahead and roll again. I may regret this. That's another 1.
Now, do you want to use your...
Ooh, I have a Primo.
Primo.
You're so right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and use that.
Okay. So you clear out the 3-step. A is going to roll 5 dice.
Okay. That's a lot of dice.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A is trying to get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take aside any of my dice that match that theme. I rolled a 3, 4, and 6.
Oof, okay.
So I am going to put those dice aside. However, A is rolling 3 dice, which means that the next turn I am again rolling 5 dice.
What?
Which means it is way more likely that I get, like, it gives me a ton of dice to play with.
Holy shit, Thimblejack.
Thimblejack ain't playing.
A slaps.
A slaps.
Okay, cool.
Like I said, this game is mechanically so cool.
Yeah, it's really, really neat. Okay, great. So I cleared out my 3-step. I'm trying to get a 1-step and a 2-step. That shouldn't be too bad. I can do that.
Yeah.
Boom. 3. I'll go and roll again, see if I can get that 2-step. Another 3. Dang it.
Okay. A is going to roll 5 dice. 6, 4, 5. So that's 1 closer. 1.
Oof.
If I get a 2 here, that's a 5. All right, you're up. Yeah, they add. A is consciously like, and they are telling you every woe that could have happened, every puddle A stepped in, every time a bird landed in front of them. They are, A is just like haunting you.
We're like West Side Story dancing here, I think, sort of circling around each other with like a few steps thrown in. And I think my life is made a little bit harder by the fact that I kind of have to like sidestep these like weird puddles of what may or may not be water. And it's kind of glistening strangely in the like, is it water? Is it blood? Is it water? Is it silver?
I think every puddle you see has a picture of Thimblejack or Mixter or both of you. Like you see like a flash of a life, right? You see like so, like, you see, like, different, like, all of these horrible things, like, unfolding, and they're happening to you, or Thimblejack, or both of you at once, and it's just, like, kind of, all of this is blurring together about, like, how the city goes out of its way to destroy you.
Is it a memory? Is it a projection? Is it season 3 of Twin Peaks? Like, none of us know.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. That is 3. I'll go ahead and keep my 1 step. So I have my 1 step and my 3 step, and now I just need to get my 2 step.
Okay, I've got to roll 5 dice and get a 2.
Yeah, okay.
I need 1 more dice. I need more dice.
Ah.
Isn't that always the best thing to say in a game?
Life is hard. Yeah, right?
3, 6, 6, 3, 4. You are safe.
Next Tripper Snigget dances another chorus. All right. Don't get me wrong, dice. That's a 3. We're gonna go again. We gotta. That's a 4.
Oh, you got it. You got it. You,
boom, boom,
yeah.
boom, boom, boom.
So you, for a moment, like, as you're dancing, I think there's a moment where you, like, glance over a puddle.
Mm-hmm.
And for a moment, you see, like, all of the cats gathered in one place. All of the cats singing and dancing together. And you see, like, suddenly, like, you are standing alone. Like, you're watching this puddle and you look up and there's no one around. All of the mice are gone. Fred is gone. It's just you and Thimblejack. But A is not looking at you. A is looking in the water, and you're both looking, and you both see all of these cats dancing and dancing. Mm-hmm. And Thimblejack walks up steps and is put on what looks like a balloon and floats away. And A begins to cry, and as A cries, everything fades, like water, right? Water is rushing. Suddenly, the walls are crying. Everything is crying. Fred somewhere is crying, and suddenly you are alone in a wet, moldy, smelly room. And all of that pain in your shoulders is gone as you may convert 1 consequence to experience.
Can I make 1 suggestion first?
Yes,
and
please.
This is just a flavor thing, because I just think, like, there's maybe 1 element of Cats the Movie 2019, which we have not quite gotten to yet, which is everything needs to be, like, ridiculously sensual, right? So
yep.
I have this image in my mind of, like, you know, we're dancing and it's, like, very antagonistic, but maybe, like, there are points where we're, like, weirdly close to each other. And I think, like, there's this moment where we both are looking down at this puddle, and before everything sort of vanishes and washes away, we look back up at each other and our faces are, like, really, really close to each other. And I think that's how I see, like, the tears welling up in our eyes, like, which maybe would be sort of indiscernible otherwise. And there's this moment of kind of intense, breathless vulnerability. And I see the tears start to run down our face, and then everything sort of, like, fades and washes away. So, like, maybe I reach out to touch, him, and that's when everything just sort of, like, dissolves away, like, washes down in this, like, weird sort of thrumming water sound in my ears, and everything is, like, weird, but there's this moment of, like, reaching for something and it's gone.
Yeah. And I think as we come to our next rest scene, I think we're going to call that game.
Yeah.
For this, I think this is our look into a Jellicle year, into the angelical life of an angelical cat.
That game rules. And that's that's the kindest thing I've ever said about anything remotely adjacent to Andrew Lloyd Webber.
This game does rule. Like, I'm sitting here with my head in my hand, like, this game is incredible.
Yeah.
Dang.
Mechanically, this slaps.
This
very,
does
very
slap.
cool. Very cool.
Very much slaps. Alex, thank you for coming and playing with me. Thank you for indulging in the world of cats
Yeah,
with
thanks for
me.
having me again, Jeff. It is a joy to build a story with you.
Oh my goodness. I am tickled with how much I enjoyed this game. I'm trying to regain composure and end the show, and I'm having a hard time.
Cool.
So real quick before we wrap up, where can people find you and your work online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter way too frequently, which my Twitter handle is at Coffee Detective, COFF33 Detective. You can find me on the Cryptid Keeper podcast or hosting a Horror Borealis. I'm the GM for that. It's a Monster of the Week game. on the One Shot Network. We have a lot of fun there. You can also find me. I've designed a couple of games, none of them this rad, but hope springs eternal. My biggest one is Coffee Detective, which you can find on DriveThruRPG just by searching for Coffee Detective. It's a Twin Peaks-esque game, so this was very, very fun to kind of lean into that weirdness, and I very much enjoyed it. So thank you again for having me, and thank you for picking this particular venue with which to explore, because I had a blast.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for playing this game with me. And for now, I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me. And thanks again to Alex for coming on the show. That game was really, really good. I loved it. Oh my god, I love so much about that game. I want to play more of it. I'm gonna be playing more of that game. That's just a cold hard fact. I want to play through a whole campaign of the Angelical year in the Angelical life of an Angelical cat. Be sure to follow Alex on Twitter at Coffee Detective, that's COFF33 Detective. Be sure to check the show notes for more information about the Angelical life. And while you're on Twitter, be sure to follow us at Party of One Pod. Like the show at Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast. Give us a nice review on iTunes, Podchaser, or Stitcher. Those are the 3 places they go to my email, so they're the best places to review the show just because they give me validation. You can also consider backing the show on Patreon at patreon.com/JeffStormer, which promotes not just the podcast that I produce, but the games that I design and all the other cool stuff that I work on in a given week. You can also support the other show that I produce, All My Fantasy Children, which is a character creation, world building, and storytelling podcast on the One Shot Podcast Network, where me and my best friend, Aaron Catanos Saez, every single week we take a listener-submitted prompt, we spin it into an original fantasy character, and we populate a shared universe one story at a time. New episodes drop every Friday-ish at oneshotpodcast.com. You can also join our Discord community at bit.ly/partyofonediscord and visit our merch store at bit.ly/partyofonemerch. Party of One is produced and edited, as always, by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Megaran featuring the D&D Sluggers, and the Party of One logo is by Evan Rowland. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates, coming on the show as a guest, or about press coverage, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And I think that's it. I think that's all of it. I think I got all of it. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance, and as always, party on, everybody.